for joining me. Now, there are a number of readings I've been wanting to do, and I just thought I'd start off with Russia and its neighbours, particularly since the subject seems to be poignant at the moment in the context of Russia's recent flight activity, particularly in the airspace incursions in this month with Poland and Estonia, and I thought that there were some questions that needed asking, and I wondered if I could pick some information up that might be helpful to us all. So I've made a few cards out, as you can see, which is how I work, because we need to know, or it'd be helpful to know, what Moscow's intent is in regard to the recent scale and coordination of their incursions, and it seems to be a deliberate sort of strategy. So let's have a look and see what we can find out. So the first question I want to ask about Russia is, are these incursions intentional and sort of looking to find out things, or are they something else? Are they sort of pilot error? Are these pilot error? No, I just don't get that. I don't get that at all. Are they more likely then to be testing NATO's readiness? Is that more likely? Yeah, I get quite a strong yes for that one. Let me see. Is Moscow perhaps trying to gauge the alliance's sort of response times and perhaps their capabilities, the defensive capabilities and their coordination? Would you say that that's what Moscow is trying to do? Let me see what I pick up. Is that what they're trying to do? Yes, and I get that as a negative. So that would indicate to me that that's what they're doing. So, the other thing is this a sort of, it seems to me that it is, but I don't know anything about any wars or anything. So if I ask, is this a sort of intimidation to sow fear and signal a sort of willingness to take risks along the NATO borders? Would you say that that's what it was, Spirit? Yes, and I get that as a negative. So that suggests to me that Russia's becoming bolder or emboldened for whatever reason. It could be because they feel that Trump is less inclined to do anything particularly at the moment, or that NATO is not particularly strong, particularly with all the troubles that we've got going on in Europe. So is this sort of a strategy to destabilise Europe's confidence then? Would you say that's yes or no? Yes, it is. It's to destabilise Europe's confidence. And I don't know, I suppose it's working really. So how can we strengthen and integrate its air defences, as these incidents have exposed sort of potential vulnerabilities in Europe's air defence capabilities, particularly against drones and unannounced military aircraft? That's a huge worry, isn't it? The fact that is not under control. So since the air defence capabilities are not limitless, will Europe decide how best to allocate resources and acquire more equipment in the short term? I'm doing this reading, I should clarify, between now and Christmas and next year. So this is the time frame I'm looking at. I'm not looking much beyond, but we'll be told if it does go beyond that period of time. So this is the time frame this year, remainder of this year and next. All right, so we're 2025, 2026. So back to my question, will Europe actually do anything and decide how best to allocate resources and acquire more equipment in this time frame? Would that be a yes or a no? No, I don't see that happening, unfortunately. So that's a great worry. Now then, it seems that the delay in Poland's anti-drone system shows that some countries need faster and more robust upgrades to their defensive systems. So will modernising infrastructure improve in Europe? Because that's very important too, because that's a form of defence for us. Will it improve over the period of time we're talking about? No, I don't see that happening. Will what we have be adequate? No, I don't see it being adequate either, unfortunately. Now then, while NATO intercepted the aircraft and the incidents highlighted the need for seamless integration of national air defences, especially in the context of high-speed incursions by fighter jets and drones, will the improved coordination required take place at all? I mean, that's quite important. Will we get what we need to protect our shores in Europe? Yes or no? No, we won't. Well, that's another concern. So we really need to know, I suppose, in Europe, this is a field I'm unfamiliar with, but we need to know, I suppose, that Europe has in place the proper escalation warning thresholds and rules of engagement, so as we know that everybody can act on it. As flights and incursions become more frequent, Europe needs to clarify what it's responsive collectively, and make sure that they've got protocols to avoid any kind of unintended escalation. It's a great worry, isn't it? So is there a setting of clear red lines at the moment? There is none. Now that's another concern, isn't it? Because there are none. If I think about other questions we need to ask, I mean, some people that know about war and warfare will tell you that aggressive manoeuvres are pretty rare. That many of these sort of things happen without further incident. So I suppose one of the questions is there a danger that normalising the risk and chance of a miscalculation triggers a sort of wider military response? Is that possible? Yes, that is possible. Will it happen? No, it won't actually happen, but it is possible at the moment because the markers are not in place, which is a bit of a worry. Does the EU, I have to ask, have a defining sort of proportional response to the different levels of aggression, I suppose, from an isolated aircraft going across a boundary to, perhaps a coordinated swarm of drones? Does the EU have something in place to sort of differentiate between the two at the moment? No, there's nothing there at the moment. I don't pick up that there's anything there at the moment, which is a worry. So that will definitely need improvement. So how does how does Europe, rather, so how can Europe counter Russian messaging and disinformation around these events? Well, that's a very important consideration, isn't it? Because Russia uses a multitude of ways of upsetting the balance in Europe. So it often, as we know, as we've all experienced, it claims a sort of posturing and sort of denials and counterclaims, creating confusion and weakening a sort of unification between the EU and our response. Will Europe build a clear counter-narrative? Is that going to happen? Will Europe build a clear counter-narrative? Is that possible? No, I just don't feel that Europe's prepared. It's frightening, actually, because I just don't feel we're prepared. Will Europe then achieve a sort of robust strategy to sort of rebuild public confidence and sort of debunk Russian claims? Will that happen? No, I always see Europe as being the poorer in terms of organisation. It's as if Russia knows how to behave badly, and Europe has been caught surprised, unfortunately. Let me see. I mean, we know that Russia often uses proxies or low-tech methods that sort of offer a plausible deniability. So will Europe find a way to coordinate and expose the Kremlin's role in destabilising the public in Europe? Is that going to happen? I have no answer for that. It's obviously more complicated than that, and my question was too vague. It will manage some of it. Europe will manage some of it. But, so what proportion would you say? I'd say, how much would you say out of, I'd say a third. So the rest, Russia is getting away with quite a lot, actually, of negative information. So the other thing we need to think about is, how does the aerial aggression influence the European defence policy? You know, that's important. I suppose what we need to know is, I mean, how can I put it? In the face, I suppose what I would say then, in the face of more aggression, Europe is facing much more aggression. So other members of the Baltic Sea area are more vulnerable. So are Sweden and Finland going to be safe as part of NATO? Well, I'm going to go into that a little bit later. So I'll answer that question a little bit later on. So the other thing I wanted to ask was, will these sort of hybrid tactics that are used by Russia, like the drones and so forth, will that be realistically addressed within the time frame we're talking about, between the end of this year and the end of next? No, I don't get that at all. So no, I don't see that happening, unfortunately. So does that mean then that Europe are going to have to prioritise investments in capabilities to help our defences? Will that happen? No. We're on the back foot. Every time I look at this, we're on the back foot. So if I ask, I mean, given the recent events, Estonia, I'll put that. So what I wanted to know was, will Estonia actually be invaded by Russia? We know that Russia has gone into their airspace, but will Estonia actually be invaded by Russia at any point? No, I don't get that. I just don't get that. So Estonia, although they may be threatening Russia, I just don't get that they're going to invade. Will it be attacked with cyber attacks? Will Russia attack Estonia with cyber attacks? Yes, it will. And actually, I think it will be fairly successful. And will it attack on the infrastructure? Will Russia attack Estonia with its infrastructure? Yes. With its electricity supply? Yes. But with its critical infrastructure, no, I don't get that. I don't think they're going to bother with that. So what about, will Russia spread misinformation online about Estonia between the end of the year and the end of next year? Yes, it will. I don't think it's going to be massive, but I think it will be. They will attempt to do it, but I think it's not going to be overwhelming by any means. And I don't know actually if it will make a huge amount of difference to the Estonian people. Now, when I come to Finland, let's have a look, because Finland is bordered with Russia by 800 miles, so you're going to have to tread carefully if you live in Finland, not to upset the Russians and keep things on an even keel. Finland was last invaded, wasn't it, 1938. So will there be, this is a very important question, will Finland again be invaded by Russia at some point in the time frame that I'm looking at today? So the end of this year, the end of next. At some point, will it be, though, invaded by Russia? Yes, it will be invaded by Russia. In the next 5 years, 10. In the next 10 years, it will be invaded by Russia. Yes. I can see a lot of people leaving, and it's cold, and they're dressed up warm, and they're all trying to flee. So we're looking at some really big event here, unfortunately. So will Russia actually attack Finland then at any point in the future? Yes. Will it be up the northern end? No. Okay, well, not particularly up the northern end. Will Russia attack Finland up the northern area of the country at any point in the future? Will it be further down? Yeah, I think it might be further down. Well, that's rather concerning. If I put Norway and Russia together, all I can say is that Norway is very vulnerable. Its coast is very vulnerable to Russian spies and submarines. That's what I do pick up. And also what is very vulnerable is its gas line. So will its gas line be affected between now and the time frame I'm looking at today? Subsequently, at some point in the future? Yeah, at some point in the future, Norway's gas line will be affected by Russia. But it won't be in the next, well, this year and next. So will Norway and Russia continue to clean up the nuclear wrecks which are around the sea nearby and around the coast, which they worry about leaking radioactivity? Will Norway and Russia continue to work together? No, I don't get that. No, I don't get that. So I suppose the question we need to ask ourselves is, will Europe ever trust Russia again? No, it's going to become a pariah for decades. Nobody's going to trust Russia for decades. And actually, I can see Russia becoming quite impoverished. I'm shown very bad weather and sort of, terrible, being left out in the storm, if you like. And it's as if Russia becomes a sort of, as if nobody wants to be its friend, really, because it's not trustworthy. That's the trouble. And it's always thrown its weight about. Well, I'll conclude there for the moment, and I hope you found this interesting. And I shall continue with my second part shortly. Thank you. Thank you for joining me.